Welcome to the Irish NFL Show, brought to you in association with QuinnBet. Well, the thing about the divisional round is, as the name suggests, it's all about division, dividing between the strong and the weak, the lucky and the unlucky, the bold and the meek. And so, only 4 teams are left standing. We have our AFC and NFC Championship matchups. Ciarán O'Donovan, Kieran Boyle and me, Conor Brophy, here to recap the weekend's action. We start though, lads, with some fallout from the results over the weekend. A 5th fall of Buffalo, you might say, if you're familiar with the ESPN documentary 4 Falls of Buffalo. Unfortunately, did not go well for the Bills over the weekend. And Kieran Boyle, they fired Sean McDermott. We've got to say one thing, like there's several things about this that stick in my craw. And one that we've been back and forth on the show and in the infamous show WhatsApp group is Brandon Beane, the Bills GM, was clapping back on talk radio in New York earlier this year. You know, goes on air to shout down to sports jocks in New York saying, you know, we drafted all defense because we had one of the best offenses in the league last year. Offense wasn't the problem, blah, 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 blah. I say this to Brandon Beane. You get yourself a Luther Burden or an Emeka Egbuka or one of those other receivers that was available in the draft instead of one of those defensive picks, your team's probably going to the Super Bowl this year. But you got promoted and you fired your head coach.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, I may go off on GMs a little bit in this broadcast, but especially with Beane. I mean, I was going to go, before you brought that up about the post-draft interview he had on the radio, I was going to bring it up and mention that. I mean, Bill Parcells famously said, you know, if you want me to cook the dinner, you got to let me get the groceries. And I think Beane did a disservice to McDermott and what he put out there. I said it in the chat. I think Keon Coleman, a healthy scratch for most of the season. Khalil Shakir, 4 touchdowns this year. Curtis Samuel, 1 touchdown. I think Coleman had 4 touchdowns. Yesterday, that wide receiving crew, over the weekend, the wide receiving crew for the Bills had 111 total yards, and 75 of those were Khalil Shakir. You can't win in this league, and you can't win in the playoffs with that kind of production. I mean, he just, the entire world, James Cook was getting the ball about 30 times on Saturday, and it's not surprising. I mean, I think Rappaport this morning, Ian Rappaport said he was shocked. I don't think it's a shock. It's more a surprise that McDermott's been let go. But, you know, that roster was hanging on barely. I mean, we saw last week in Jacksonville. I mean, it was James Cook, Josh Allen, and Kincaid and Knox. They're the ones that got him over the line eventually, apart from that Brandon Cooks catch at the end. But, the wide receiving core has been vastly deficit. There's been a big deficit in them all season, and it kind of came home to roost on Saturday. I think that Allen is suffered because of that. He's put his body in extreme situations that he shouldn't have been put in, and James Cook has been running the ball way too much because of the dearth of wide receivers. But but you flip all that, and then we always say the NFL is a results business, and unfortunately, he's 8-8 in the playoffs, 98-50 in the regular season, 0-3 in playoffs in overtimes. I mean, in overtime, that's when you make your bones in the NFL. You got to produce when the lights are the brightest. And unfortunately, McDermott, I mean, he's been there since 2017. I mean, he's had a lot of opportunities. The Pegula family, they just ran out of patience. I don't know whether it was the fact that they didn't have Mahomes or Burrow or the rest of the cats in the playoffs, but Allen turns 30 in May. We talk about it with Mahomes. I mean, you know, you've got to make hay while the sun shines. And unfortunately, McDermott was a casualty of that. But I just don't like it. Doesn't seem right that Beane gets a promotion over what he's done. I mean,
that's the thing that doesn't sit right with me either. It's okay. I can make the argument for Sean McDermott being fired, and I could probably make an equally strong argument that you might just as well stick with them. And it's not all down to poor coaching by any means that they haven't made it to the promised land. There's a lot of other factors at play there, but I cannot see how you're rewarding the GM for, as you say, providing Sean McDermott with arguably the worst roster, certainly offensively, that he's had in his last at least 3-4 seasons in Buffalo, thinking back from my perspective, and expecting him to go and win in this year. And I do think, and maybe, you know, I'd like to get your perspective on this, Ciarán O'Donovan. At some level, you can't tell me that a factor in this isn't no Burrow, no Mahomes, no Lamar in the playoffs, and that Buffalo kind of got wrapped up into this whole fan narrative and media narrative that this is Buffalo's year, and if they don't get it this year, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, and that look, the Brandon B decision, it reeks of it reeks of injustice and politics and scapegoatism or whatever you want to call it. There just is no logical explanation for that, except it might be an excuse to bring in another GM who might make better decisions than Brandon B did, and what kind of a role is the president, the presidential role that he's taking on. So maybe it's a nice way of solving a problem without having to can the GM. Yeah. It is really it's because the level of expectation in Buffalo is Super Bowl or failure, because of the fact that Josh Allen is on the field, and it has come to the point where now they feel that Sean McDermott has had this window for so long. He's had them at the doorstep, and yeah, I agree with you. I think the fact that the other big names that you mentioned weren't in the running this year, it really, I suppose, it highlighted the or maybe magnified the disappointment that was the loss at the weekend. And you saw it. I mean, nobody, you'd have to be made of stone not to feel for Josh Allen and his teammates, the way he let it all out. And I mean, he accepted full responsibility for the fact that he had one of those days. He just had one of those days, and we'll get into the game in a minute. I mean, they wouldn't have been in a position to win any game without Josh Allen. So we're not gonna hammer him for that loss. But I too see the logic in firing Sean McDermott. I think Dan Orlovsky looked at his reaction. He said the same. I can understand it. I like Sean McDermott. A lot of people actually said they like Sean McDermott as a coach. They think he's a really good coach, but they can still understand the logic. Two things can be true. It's a results-based business, and at some point something is going to have to give. But it just makes for an interesting conversation. And a lot of the reason I'm harping back to the Packers. A lot of the, I suppose, the pushback on those who were maybe calling for Matt LaFleur to be fired was, well, who else would you have in that position? I mean, who else is out there that's going to take him to the next level? And I was trying to think back to a team like this. When was the last time a team was maybe built up and on the precipice and on the cusp and replaced the coach and actually went and had success?
Well, I think the example that's often thrown out there, and it's a flawed one, is Philadelphia. They move on from Andy Reid, and he goes on and wins in Kansas City, and they win a Super Bowl. But that's you're skipping over quite a few fruitless seasons before you get from one to the other. There was no direct line there.
No, the one I'm thinking of is when Tony Dungy came into the Bucs in the late 90s and built them up from absolute no-hopers to contenders. And they went they had playoff failure after playoff failure. And I've heard you here on America's Game, Warren Sapp talks about it. And what's his name, the 49ers GM, John Lynch, he talks about it. They absolutely loved Tony Dungy, but you couldn't escape the fact that while he had a generational defense, he didn't hold the offense to the same standard. And then they went out and got John Gruden, and they had almost immediate success. So, I mean, that's the one that kind of sticks out with me. But you're kind of wondering who's going to.
Tony Dungy went and won a Super Bowl anyway. So.
And absolutely, but and that's another part of the point. If he gets the sack with one team, there's many coaches have been fired that have gone on to win Super Bowls. So it doesn't mean Sean McDermott can't have success anywhere else. I mean, you talk about Andy Reid. So it's just another interesting turn of events in that coaching carousel. And now what are we up to? 10 coaches, or 10 coaching vacancies. A third of the league is
one in three. Yeah, 1 in 3 coaches in the league. It's crazy.
Yeah. But again, that's the win now attitude in the NFL, and it just makes for another piece in the puzzle for this offseason and for the next few weeks.
If only someone had told me that the billionaire owner who's had everything going his way his entire life wanted everything to continue to go his way, whether it does so or not. Anyway,
and the one that struggles to make any change are the publicly owned team.
Yeah, God bless the socialist Packers. Ciarán Boyle, let's talk about how the Bills ended up in that position. It's a dramatic game against the Broncos, and we can look at the turnover, or was it a turnover? Ultimately, it was. And you can look at the a couple of the turnovers in particular that the Bills made, but they also had the plays to win that game. And there was one throw in particular that stuck in my mind, which is the throw that Josh Allen had to Dawson Knox. He's made much harder throws than that. He's going to walk in like he's leading Knox. It's just a little bit too high, and it goes off his hands, and it's incomplete. That's the walk-off touchdown to win the game. And you've seen Josh Allen do it 100 times. It's not an easy throw, but it's one that Josh Allen makes. To me, that's why he's in tears after the game. Like when he's thinking, I let my team down. It's not the fumbles. Like a lot of that, like, and they were some great defensive plays in there as well. It's not like Josh Allen is throwing the ball around or dropping it. There were some great defensive plays to make that happen as well. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's throws like that, and it's very unfair, and he shouldn't be down on himself. And I think we all had a lump in our throat watching that, and watching his O-lineman, his left tackle, Dion Dawkins, when he was asked about it in his own locker appearance, and he just said, he ain't let us down, and then turns away, and he can't face any more questions because he starts crying. Like it's theater, isn't it? Sorry, I feel for them, and your heart breaks for them, but geez, you wouldn't have it any other way. Like, cry a bit more. It's box office. It's why we love it.
Well, you're 100% right. I mean, I think that's why he was so crestfallen in the press conference, because he knew the game was there. I mean, the Bills, notwithstanding all the turnovers, I mean, they had more total yards than the Broncos. They had more rushing yards. They had more rushing attempts. They had more yards per rush. I mean, in a lot of the big categories, they had enough to win the game. And I mean, nobody would have begrudged them if they did pull it off. But yeah, I mean, he's going to have nightmares about that missed throw to Knox. I mean, that's one of those almost career defining. I mean, if he'd made that catch, or if he'd made that throw and the Bills score, and then they're the championship game, I mean, it's a whole different, it's a whole different ball game. But unfortunately, he's got the whole of the off season to ponder that and think about what could have gone wrong. And I think on top of the game in Jacksonville, where he basically put the team in a book bag and put him on his back and ran through the field, he did the same thing again on Saturday. I mean, he turned the ball over, and there was, there were a couple of mea culpas involved in there. But I mean, I don't want to harp on the wide receiver room, but between him and Cook, I mean, it's really, the Broncos knew where the ball was going most of the time. Apart from a couple of seam throws to Knox and a nice throw to Kincaid in there as well. I mean, Kincaid at 83 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that was more than any of the wide receivers they had. And I think he's just, I mean, obviously it was a heartbreaking moment to watch him like that in the press conference. But then, like you said, you see the rest of the players that were interviewed, and they're crestfallen too, because they realize that they've had a great chance and don't think any younger either. And it's just unfortunate that we'll talk about the Jaquan McMillan interception. Was it an interception? That'll be labored forever. But for Allen, it's that missed throw to Knox. He won't care about the Cooks. That's not what's going to keep him up at night. It's that overthrow to Knox, and the game just passed them by. And it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the league. I got no skin in it. I don't care who's in the Super Bowl, but it would have been great on a competitive level to see a team firing on all cylinders against the Pats next week. But it is what it is. And it's there's been mountains written about this game and the implications, and it's already cost McDermott his job. There's going to be a lot of changes in Buffalo. You got to remember, they also have a new stadium that they're building that's going to be ready for next season. So they're going to want to come into the 2026 season with all guns blazing and really put the stamp on this on the division and just regroup into next year. But it's very unfortunate, and it's just a tough scene to watch. I don't want to say a good guy, but a real talented person and a better quarterback. So tough for the Bills. I mean, that's going to be a long off season for him.
Ciarán O'Donovan, the Broncos won the game, and I know we've been focusing on the Bills because Sean McDermott was fired and because of the drama and the emotion attached to Josh Allen and what he said after the game. But the Broncos will also be devastated despite having won, because it's hard to remember a scenario like the one that unfolded. I think it's pretty much unprecedented, certainly in my time watching football, that a team wins. I mean, you've seen players get injured in the course of victory before, of course, but I've never seen that scenario where you come off the field, there's elation, and then you find out an hour afterwards that actually their star quarterback, Bo Nix, is gone now for the rest of the season, and suddenly triumph turns, if not quite to despair, certainly to massive uncertainty about whether they can complete the journey now from here.
Yeah, and I have to say, I've been in different. I found it hard to make up my mind about Bo Nix as his couple of seasons have progressed. He was very impressive against the Packers in that win. But he went up in my book this weekend. I mean, he toughed it out, and on paper he had a really good. He was close enough to 300 yards. He did a 3-touchdown game in a playoff game against one of the best players, possibly the best player in football at the moment. Toe to toe, when all the talk was about Josh Allen, it wasn't the occasion wasn't too big for him. And coming off the field, he knew. You can see in that interview he did, just coming off the field. He didn't make it about himself. He fought through tears. He was smiling. He was, all talk about the win, but he knew in that moment he's not going to play another part in this playoff run. So look, it just, to me, it stood out as a real indication of his character, and it is disappointing. I mean, you don't want to see anybody's best player, anybody's key player go out and lose out, and nobody asked for Jarrett Stidham in an AFC Championship game, and yet give Jarrett Stidham his dues. You never know what the coming week will bring. You saw Sean Payton in the aftermath. He said, but when he was asked about Jarrett Stidham, he said, "Just watch," and he really emphasized his confidence in Jarrett Stidham. But it is important to remember that he did give.
Well, he's not going to turn around and say, "Oh my God."
No. I get that. But I mean, he has shown faith in Jarrett Stidham by extending his contract. I think he went out and signed him very early on in his tenure in Denver, and he survived a lot of quarterback turnover. They were giving him props. I think it was on NFL Daily during the week, where they said, in the preseason, I know it's only the preseason, but he absolutely balled out. And look, we're just going to have to wait and see. Nobody expected anything from Nick Foles in 2017. You just don't know. And it's one game. I mean, he could go out and have the absolute game of his life next week and have them in a Super Bowl. We spoke about it very briefly, Ciarán. Neither of us in our instant reaction last night were giving Denver too much hope behind Jarrett Stidham next week. Having said that, it's not beyond the realms of possibility for a little bit of complacency to creep into some of these young players in New England as well, and maybe take this a little bit for granted now that it's set up as an absolute gimme according to everyone that you ask.
Kieran Boyle will have 2 words for you, and those will be Jeff and Hostetler in that order. Come at the hour, sometimes come at the man. It's not always the man that you expect. The man that we expected to be.
And there's a lot of there are a good few instances. There's a good few examples of backups going all the way in NFL history as well. So yeah, it's possible.
No, it certainly is. Kieran Boyle, the man that we expected a lot more from was CJ Stroud at the weekend. Myself, Shane, and Brian were doing the live watch along in Greco Studios on Sunday evening. Along to this one, we picked probably the worst game of the weekends to do the watch along for, unfortunately. But we kept ourselves entertained, so that's the main thing. But we said right at the start of the game, CJ Stroud had 5 turnovers in the wildcard round. You can't win playoff games like that. And at least that was one thing we were right about, because CJ Stroud went and pretty much did exactly the same thing again. And sure enough, this time they didn't get away with it.
Yeah, that was a brutal watch. I mean, a lot was made before the game about the weather conditions and, Houston playing indoors and they're going out into that. But, CJ Stroud played at Ohio State, and he played a lot of games up in the Midwest in difficult conditions. So I wasn't really, buying into that narrative. But man, that was a tough watch. I was doing the instant reaction with Ciarán last night, and he looked lost. He looked, I mean, spooked. Just every throw, every time he dropped back, every throw you're like holding your breath, like where's it going to end up? Is it going to be picked off? Is it going where's it going to go? And that's not good at all. And I mean, it leads to more questions now than anything else, because I mean, are they going to pick up? They'll probably pick up the 5th-year option on him, but again, question marks. Is this the guy to lead this team? Because the defense is all world. I mean, it's absolutely rock solid. A team that generally you give up a touchdown or 2 and a couple of field goals, and you just let you let the offense just carry the rest of it. But it just wasn't happening. And again, we talked about Brandon Beane earlier. I can't let Nick Caserio off the hook with this either, because we knew Tank Dell wasn't there, and we knew that Nico Collins was going to be out. But there doesn't seem to be any contingency plan to help out Stroud in any way. I mean, yeah, they got a couple of wide receivers out there. They picked up Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is a wide receiver 3 probably at best, and they had him out there as a wide receiver 1. He can't do it all himself. And they got, not only that, but they're relying on Woody Marks, a rookie out of USC, who had 14 carries for 17 yards. Then you're relying on Ayrton Ursary, another rookie at left tackle. He's not ready for that just yet. And then you've got Higgins and Noel, more rookies. So I think Caserio there has to be some blame apportioned to him too, because we already know that Diggs is gone. So that's that's one out of the three that you already had. And then when the other two kind of wide receiver 1 and 2 are gone, you can't rely on backups. And that was a huge part for me that Stroud, it was too hard, notwithstanding the defense of the Pats, but it was just too hard for him to get into any rhythm. Nothing seemed that it was cohesive. He seemed startled. He seemed, out of sorts. I don't know what, obviously the Pats defense is phenomenal, but he's been able to work through a 10 win streak in this league and being able to stay on the Jags' tail the entire season. So it's just huge question marks now in Houston, because this is a team that, I've thought they've been able to do it in the last couple of years, but is he, you look around the team now, is he the problem? I mean, you're going to have to draft a running back to help out Woody Marks if Woody Marks is the guy, but you got to help out the wide receiver. When Schultz went down, that was a big blow to them as well, because that's a big safety net for Stroud. But I mean, we can say all those things, but ultimately it's got to come down to the leader on the team. And he just didn't perform as a leader. He didn't perform when the lights were the brightest. And it was I don't want to say, a startling game or a surprising game from him, but, people expect a lot more from somebody like CJ Stroud, who performed in college and he had a great rookie year. Can we really say that he's done all that well after his rookie year? I mean, they had a down year last year. But I mean, there's going to be some serious questions in Houston about is Stroud the guy.
I heard you guys talking in the instant reaction show, and Ciarán O'Donovan, you made a really good point about that moment. And I remember us talking about it at the time when the Bears played the Texans and CJ Stroud was playing the big man, the veteran, in his second year after he'd balled out in year one and got into the Texans to the playoffs, and the Texans beat the Bears and Caleb doesn't have a great game. CJ Stroud appears to try and lean in Caleb Williams' ear and offer him a bit of advice. And you were saying at the time, you've only been in the league a year rather. Calm down, big fella. And I mean, I wonder, for all of that, Bears fans were wondering this at the time. I was wondering this at the time. Did the Bears make a mistake? Should they have actually gone with the pick that they had that year and taken CJ Stroud instead of waiting a year for Caleb Williams? I don't think too many people are making that decision right now. And let's talk about we talk about the Patriots to be fair as well, because I thought it was a point really well made by you. Like you gotta earn your stripes over a period of time, and maybe he was feeling it a little bit much in year one and year two, and he certainly doesn't look like the man right now. He's too talented not to come back, but he's got to go on a bit of a journey, a bit of a redemption arc. But what I was going to talk about is the Patriots won, and a lot of us picked them to win, and it wasn't a surprise that they won because they're playing at home and they've been on that great run. The way that they won, though, surprised me, because I don't necessarily think that their offense balled out. It wasn't a brilliant Drake Maye game. Shane Brennan was talking about how surprised he's been that the Patriots have stepped up so much defensively. And I know you love an L pop culture reference, Ciarán. But one thing that I'd be concerned about from a Patriots perspective is, I don't know if you've seen the Nick Cage movie Dream Scenario, where people are dreaming that Nick Cage's character, he's in all their dreams. That entire Patriots O-line and Drake Maye himself are going to be dreaming about Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson coming gunning for them. The left side of that Patriots line is still a worry. And if there's one thing that's going to hold them back from winning a Super Bowl, it's trying to withstand the Broncos pass rush next week.
Yeah, and it's not as if they didn't see it coming. We talked all week, we talked all season about Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson, and they had 5 sacks between them. It was, and that's what we talk. Look, okay, we're talking about it on offense. You want to see the stars show up, but when everybody's talking about you all week long, and that the opposition is scheming for you, and not just you, but you're top of the list, and you go out and ball out like that, it is just it's an absolute sign that you're two absolute studs. They were stars every time Will Anderson came around the corner, and even I was laughing when talking to Sean Prendergast the other night. He was joking. He was being facetious about teams chip blocking them. Oh yeah, God, we've never seen that before. God, we're terrified of being chipped, of having the lads chipped. every time they tried to chip him with a receiver or a tight end, Will Anderson, it was almost like, okay, go away, you're just a nuisance. And around the corner he came. And I mean, Drake Maye, like the Patriots won, Drake Maye fumbled the ball 4 times. It was lucky they got 2 of them back. But it was like Will Anderson was a nuisance. And then Daniil Hunter straight up the middle. 5 sacks between them. It was incredible. But questions going into next weekend again, probably the second week in a row where Will Campbell was not, I suppose, didn't inspire confidence.
He came out swinging during the week after that Chargers game, and how he felt disrespected and how he was going to show everybody. He didn't show us much. No,
and I think, to be fair, he said all the right things. He said he doesn't pay into the pay into the buzz on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. He mentioned keyboard warriors, and he as I said, he said the right things. He holds himself to a very high standard, but he was shown up again. The only caveat to that is it was 2 of the best. The best pass rush in the league, but he's coming up against pretty much the second best or on an even keel. It's not going to get much easier for him next week.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to like roach Cooper and Benito too much if he didn't fancy his Hunter and Anderson diet over the weekend.
Yeah, and we talked about Drake Maye, and I mentioned he fumbled the ball 4 times, but what I do like about him is he showed up in the big moments again. I mean, his stats didn't jump off the page. He had a 20 QBR or something like that, 20.8. But he found his guys when he had to find them. He had some great scrambles, and he was. I like him. I think he is the real deal. I know he got some unwarranted criticism about the strength of schedule, and that he was probably built up a little bit too much. But he faced a lot of pressure this year, and I've seen him show up in big moments, and I think Shane Brennan, as a Patriots fan, is going to be happy with what they have for the long term. He found his boys in Pop Douglas, Diggs, and the booty call down the sideline. What a catch worthy of winning any playoff.
We've had all season to work on booty puns, and everybody still jumps on the booty call. Like,
it's the easiest one.
More original than that.
I threw in a bootylicious last night on the comment section, but I know you could do better than that. I apologize. I'll be back next week with something.
Yeah, we'll work on it. We'll work on it during the week. We'll put in the reps on the training ground. Don't worry. We'll have all the booty you need at the weekend.
Quick word. I've been back.
Ages ago, wasn't it?
Sorry, guys. Quick word. I've been bashing the GMs all broadcast, but you got to give the Pats and Wolf credit. I've talked about it before, but the free agent acquisitions that they've made. I mean, that's turned this team around. Bradbury, Milton Williams get with that playoff experience from the Eagles from last year. Bringing Stephon Diggs in. I mean, a lot of people have question marks about that. Carlton Davis, Spillane, even the center Garrett Bradbury. So I will give props to Wolf and obviously with Vrabel as well. But I mean, that's a scary team going forward now.
Yeah, it certainly will be a scary prospect.
Henderson and Stevenson as well, when they had to do it, when they had to have them at the end, we'd said it last night, they trucked it up the middle, got yard after yard against one of the best defenses in the league, and just finished the job. It was really emphatic at the end.
Yeah, and as you were saying, Ciarán Boyle, on the instant reaction, completely shut down the Texans' own running game, and it was embarrassing for Marks and Chubb at one stage. They just weren't getting any traction at all, and that pretty much was the pattern of the game for them. We'll talk about the NFC Divisional Round games after this quick break.